and I'm the college counselor with Hilliard City Schools. Welcome to the Junior College Planning Meeting. We're going to go over a lot of things today, helping you as a family understand what students should be doing right now. We're going to talk about a plan between now and April. We will have a different meeting in April as well to talk about what students and parents should be doing between April and the 1st of August when the Common App opens at that time. So feel free, if you have any questions, write them down. Feel free to send them to me in some type of email, or feel free to give me a call. So let's talk about standardized testing. ACT and SAT are still a thing. Let's start off with ACT. So ACT is offered 7 times a year. It has a composite score of a 36. That is the highest that you can get. It is made up of 4 different sections: English, reading, math, and science. There is an optional writing section. Students do not have to use that because most colleges do not use that at this time. So each section is worth 36 points, and then they have the composite score is an average of a 36. And so what is important to know here is these are all of the national testing dates, but ACT does offer one. They started about 4 years ago, offering one during the summer. Yes, there's one on June 14th, but there's also one in the middle of the summer. And so a lot of times kids are busy throughout the school year. They have family things going on, and just they're not able to take those tests. So they do offer one during the summer. Now, the SAT is also offered 7 times a year. It is made up of critical reading and math, with the highest score being a 1600. Each one of those 2 sections is worth 800 points, and you put your scores together for your composite. Again, it is out of 1600. There is no writing section of the SAT. There used to be, but there is not now. So standardized testing, ACT and SAT, every school in the country, except for the state schools in the state of California, who are not allowed to use any test scores, but every school in the country will use either test. The state schools in the state of Florida, they're all test mandatory, so students have to apply using one of these tests. Okay, so I prefer one over the other. My suggestion for this is for each student to take each test once, figure out which test fits them best, and then from there, take that test 2 more times. And the reason for that is some schools actually super score, which means if a student takes, let's say, the ACT 3 times, and they score a 28, a 28, and a 27, a school like Ohio State, who does not super score, they will always use the highest score that a student has earned. They will say that this student has a 28. But a school like Miami of Ohio, Case Western, Johns Hopkins, they super score. So they might say a student has a 29, 30, or even a 31. The way that they do that is they take the highest sub-scores from all of the tests and put those together. So they might use the highest reading score from the first test, the highest math score from the second test, the highest English and reading score from the third test, and then that will give them a super score of a higher number. And so that's why it's important for students to take each test once, figure out which test fits them best, then take that test 2 more times. So hopefully all of your juniors have signed up for the PSAT. It is on October 23rd. This is the test that's used for the National Merit Scholarship Program. At the very minimum, if they did not sign up for it, um, this test does help students prepare for the SAT, which students will take at the high school in April. All of the juniors will take the SAT at their high school during the school day. Students do not have to sign up for that. They do not have to pay for that. Hilliard will take care of all of it. There is no writing section, so they're not going to have to worry about that. The SAT is only digital right now, and so the test will last 2 hours and 14 minutes, and they will be able to do that on their iPads. I do want to go back to the PSAT. If your student did not sign up for this, unfortunately, it is too late for them to do that now. We had to get the orders in, and then we had to order all of those tests at that moment. So it is too late to do that. So, but the students will not have to sign up or pay for the SAT that they take in the spring. And so I think it's important that students and parents help create a testing plan. And I think that plan also should start with, what math class are you in right now? And I get asked this question all the time. When should my child take these tests? Well, if they've already had Algebra 2, they could begin to take those tests now. But there's a lot of Algebra 2 questions in both ACT and the SAT. For an example, the ACT has 60 math questions. There's a lot of geometry questions there. There's between 9 and 12 Algebra 2 type of questions and 4 trigonometry questions, which students will get those skills in the spring of their Algebra 2 class. So they want to create a plan, and this plan needs to work backwards. And you need to work backwards from the due dates for next fall. A school like Ohio State, their application deadline is the 1st of November. That means everything has to be in at that time. The test scores, the transcript, the application, letters of recommendation, all of those things. And so to make sure those are all in, the last test, the last ACT that's guaranteed to meet all of the early deadlines is the September test. There are some schools, a few in the South, that actually have an October 15th deadline. And so if they take the October 5th this year, the October 5th SAT, that SAT score is not going to get to the college by the 15th of October. So the last ACT that's guaranteed to meet all of the early deadlines is the September test. The last SAT that's guaranteed to meet all of the early deadlines is the August test. So you want to use those tests there and then work backwards throughout this school year to create a testing plan for your students. Now, if students just have high anxiety when they even think about these tests, there are over 1,400 colleges that are test optional at this point in time. A lot of colleges are reassessing if they're going to continue this policy, and they'll make those changes in the spring. But if you want to have an updated list of colleges that are test optional, I would go to this website at fairtest.org. It'll give you an updated list of colleges that are test optional. So what does test optional mean? Test optional means that if students take these tests and they get the scores back and they don't seem to match the type of student that they are, then colleges will allow them to submit an application being test optional. This had happened before COVID, but once COVID happened, many colleges went that way. And a lot of colleges have stayed test optional since then. There's been multiple colleges that have moved back to requiring those tests, like Purdue, the University of Tennessee, the state schools in the state of Florida. Okay, So, um, so if a school is test optional, your student doesn't like their score, they can fill out an application and apply without using test scores. And then, of course, there's a thing called test blind, which is in the state of California. It is legislatively driven that all state schools in the state of California are not allowed to use test scores during the enrollment process. So we need to plan ahead. What should your kids be doing right now? Hopefully they've signed up and they're going to take the PSAT on October 23rd. We will have another meeting in the spring going over the college applications. We will go over what that actually looks like in the month of April, and I'll be telling you more about that as well. There was a college fair this past Sunday on October 13th. Hopefully you were able to come to that. There will be another very large college fair this spring. I believe it's February 1st. I'll be sending out all kinds of information about that. We'll have over 200 colleges at that one. But students need to be using this time during their junior year to improve their cumulative GPA. Cumulative GPA is only calculated in January and in June. And when we send transcripts next fall, what will be on their high school transcript is their cumulative GPA at the end of their junior year. Every year we have over 100 colleges that come to each of our high schools. This is an opportunity for students to be able to speak to those college reps while they're in their high school. If students could just go into school links, click on events, and they will see a list of all of the colleges that are coming to their high school. They can sign up for them. We will send a pass for them and get them in a class so they can meet with those reps. In January or so, the PSAT results will come out. I encourage students to be able to look at those results, look at what questions they got wrong. They also have an opportunity through the College Board to create a Khan Academy account, and they can get as much SAT prep as they want for free right there. Students should begin to volunteer. That is a part of the college application process. They're going to be able to put in all of their volunteer hours, where they work, what sports teams that they're on, and things like that. December 3rd, I will host a College Credit Plus meeting. All of you are invited to that. It'll be at Darby at 6:30 if your kids are interested in taking college classes next year. When we get to scheduling in February, it's important that kids understand that senior year is important because when we send off transcripts, we also send off a copy of their senior schedule. Many colleges will ask for grades in January as well, and then move forward and schedule those ACT and SAT testing dates. Upcoming events, as I said, this past Sunday was the college fair. We will have a different one this spring on February 1st. I will be sending out information about that. I have a typo here. I believe it's April 11th is the junior meeting. We will go over the college application process at that point in time and come up with a plan for what students and parents should be doing from April till August. I'll show students and parents what the Common App looks like. I'll show you the different parts of it, and so you will be aware of how this is going to work. So important terms. It's important that we understand those terms so we understand the language that's being used when we go on various college visits. So a lot of colleges will ask students to when they're going to fill out an application, they ask them to choose what application type. So one application type is early decision. Only about 18% of the colleges across the U.S. use this as an option, but this is binding. It's usually at the more selective universities Ohio State does not use this as an option, but this is binding. This is a student telling the college, you are my number one choice. And the rule is if the student accepts that early decision application, then that's where the student is going. It's binding on the student side. It's also binding on the college side. Okay. And so I'm not a big fan of that sometimes, especially because you don't get the financial aid package until much later. Early action is something that OSU does. There's an early action deadline that's a little early, the 1st of November for a school like OSU. That's also tied to their scholarship deadline. Now, students, a lot of times, if they apply early action, then they find out the decision much earlier. Like with a school like Ohio State, all those students that applied early action, they will find out if they get into Ohio State on December 13th. And so and students can apply to as many schools as they want early action. It is non-binding. Restricted early action, there's only about 12 to 14 colleges that use this. This is it's non-binding, but it's the student telling the school that you are my number one school out of that 12 to 14 school group. Okay. Regular decision. So colleges might have an early action and early decision deadline. Then they'll also have a later deadline, which is the regular application deadline. For Ohio State, it's February 1st. And so students can still apply later. Maybe they want to take the ACT, SAT again later during their senior year. They can apply prior to that deadline and they can still get in. But it's important, though, if a college has their scholarship deadline tied to the early action deadline, they can apply during the holidays. They can still get into a place like Ohio State, but they cannot get any merit scholarships because the scholarship deadline was November 1st. Okay, you've heard me mention the common application. The common application is used by over 1,000 colleges. It is just a common application with common questions for everybody, but every university that uses it, they have a thing called a member page. So when students choose those colleges, they'll show up in a tab there in a list under the My College tab. And then that's where colleges will ask specific questions just for them. Okay. And then we're going to talk more about a holistic review, but that is how all students are going to be assessed during this process. So how do students apply to college? There's 3 types of applications. One is the Common App. Over 1,000 colleges have used that one application. University-specific applications, universities may have their own application, and they may not use the Common App. Some schools like Ohio University and Bowling Green, they use Common App. They also have their own application. Kids should not be filling out both for those colleges. Those colleges only want one application. One is not better than the other. Then the newest application is called the Coalition App. The Coalition App is made up of about 250 colleges or so. All of the colleges that are a part of this group also use Common App. There's been some issues with the Coalition App over the last few years. So whenever in doubt, please use the Common application. College visits. So the way that you schedule those, and I think it's important that students do this, is you go on a school's website. A lot of times it's right there on the homepage. Otherwise, you might have to search for it in the College of Admissions tab. And it'll say schedule a visit. You click on that tab. It'll come up with a calendar. And you'll choose a date and a time that fits for you when you can go on that tour. All of those will be there. And then you show up that day. You'll listen to a general presentation about the school, and then you will go on probably an hour walking tour of campus. They'll show you dorms, they'll show you classrooms, they'll show you dining halls and things like that. So it's very important that you do this because A lot of colleges use demonstrated interest, and demonstrated interest is when they calculate how interested your child is in their school. And if you just go and visit and walk around and they don't know that you've been there, they can't count that as a contact. So it's very important that if you're going to go to a college and visit, that you go through the College of Admissions. Rep visits, like I said, over 100 colleges are coming to each of our 3 high schools. Students should go into their School Links account, click on events, and there's the list of colleges coming here. Financial aid. So financial aid is something that the child and the parents will do together. You do this after October 1st of your child's senior year. Your child will be graduating in 26, so they'll be starting college in 26. So you will fill out the 26-27 FAFSA. I know some parents get a little excited that they want to do this, and they do it over the summer. And for next summer, you'll see the 25-26 FAFSA. That is not yours. You will have to wait on the 26-27 FAFSA to come out October 1st of your child's senior year. So FAFSA is those letters inside of that stand for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And the key word there is free. It only takes about 30 to 40 minutes to do this right now. And students will have to create their account. Their part will only take about 20 minutes. And then they have to invite the parents as a contributor. And they do that with their email address and their social security number. So that's why parents and students must sit down together to do this. It should only take 30 to 40 minutes. And then here is a list of college scholarship. These are national scholarship sites. The Columbus Foundation is a scholarship site for scholarships for kids who live in Franklin County. So important terms. When you get to filling out the FAFSA next year, you will go to studentaid.gov. Do not go to FAFSA.com, FAFSA.org, or anything like that. Go to studentaid.gov. After you fill that out, the federal government will run its calculation, and then they will give you information back as a family of what your student aid index is. It used to be called the Estimated Family Contribution, the EFC, but now it's an SAI, Student Aid Index, aka it's what the federal government feels that you can afford for college. You're not going to agree with that, I can guarantee you. But it is what is used to get the financial aid package started. Now, a lot of the private schools, especially along the East Coast, in the South, and many of those on the West Coast as well, they use a second document. It's called a CSS profile. If you see this, this is something you have to fill out. Most of the state schools all over the U.S. do not use this at all. They only use FAFSA. But many of the private schools require both. You have to fill out FAFSA and you have to fill out the CSS profile. The CSS profile can be found on the College Board website. It will dive much deeper into the family's assets. And it will come up with, and actually they still use the EFC, the Estimated Family Contribution. Now, if a college is using this document and the college uses that to come up with your EFC, they will not give you any feedback on what the outcome was using the CSS profile. Using the FAFSA, the federal government will tell you what your SAI is. But here's the secret, that if you speak to the financial aid office, and you should, especially to the colleges that made you create the CSS profile, you want to ask them what is the EFC that you guys have come up with using the CSS profile. If you ask that question, they have to give you that answer. So if the FAFSA says you can afford $15,000 a year, and the CSS profile says you can afford $19,000 a year, then your next question is, which one of these are you going to use to create the financial aid package. I can almost guarantee you which one that they're going to use, but I think it's important that they know that you know how this works. And so that's why you want to ask those questions. And then as you look at various colleges on their school's website, starting about 6 years ago, the federal government said that all colleges within 2 clicks of the homepage have to have a net price calculator. This is to help give you an estimate of what the true cost is going to be at that school. And so I would take some time to do that, and don't get scared off by many of those colleges that have a very high price tag, because this net price calculator is going to inform you of some institutional aid that's not tied to state law and federal law that can help families pay for some of those private schools. So I think it's also important when kids go on visits that they and the parents have questions to ask. So here's a list of the questions. And then I would also add something new. Since COVID, and a lot of colleges were digging out of a financial hole that was created during that year, there's been some schools that have over-enrolled over the last couple of years and have not had housing for freshmen. The University of Cincinnati, that's happened for the last 2 years. So when you go on visit, you want to ask and make sure that my freshman is going to have housing on campus, not off campus where they have to walk to campus or ride a bike in. You want your kids to be able to live on campus as a freshman. Social media, many colleges will research students on social media, just like students that are looking for jobs. And so it's important that students understand what they post. It is public. If they share their Instagram account with a college rep, so the college rep can send them updates on what's going on campus, invite them to various things. They can do that quick, easy, and cheap, but they can also see what's being posted. So it's very important. If your children created an email in 4th grade, it probably sounds like it. They need to create a new one. All of their applications are going to be tied to an email, and they want to create their own email, not using their high school one that was given to them. So what are colleges looking for? The holistic review. The holistic review is, first of all, they're going to look at students in the context of their own situation. They do not compare students side by side. They're going to look at their GPA. They're going to look at their weighted GPA, possibly their unweighted GPA. Some of the schools in the South, like Tennessee, South Carolina, they create a new GPA for students because we're on a 4-point scale, but we weight AP courses and CCP courses, and honors courses. Other schools don't weight any of their courses. Some schools like Athens High School, they're on a 6-point scale. And so they might create a GPA that everybody's on the same scale. They're going to look at test scores. If they have them, they're going to look at what students have taken compared to what we offer. They're going to look at their senior schedule, their midterm grades in January of their senior year. What kind of leadership do they have? Have they volunteered? Have they been a part of school activities and school clubs? Have they been a part of other activities and other groups outside of the high school? Again, do they have any kind of leadership roles in those groups? They're going to look at their essay. Many colleges may ask for multiple essays. This is where colleges really get to create a clearer vision of who a student is. And that's how they can figure out, is our college the best fit for that student? There's optional essays for students that they have a choice that they can do. And then I had mentioned demonstrated interest. So like a school like Case Western, if you don't visit Case Western, you're not going to get into Case Western. Their admit rate is 25%. Their admit rate for the state of Ohio is less than 9%. And so they're going to track every time your student has met with them at their high school, every time they have visited campus, have they corresponded with them on email, have they visited with them at their high school. They keep track of all of that. And then they get a score on how the college thinks, I guess, how much they feel that the student is actually interested in their school. And so even a school like Miami of Ohio, they're going to use demonstrated interest in the College of Nursing. It's gotten so popular. They have doubled the number of seats over the last 2 years, but they've had so many students apply to it. And last year they had admitted some great students, but they chose not to come. And when they looked at the student, they never had visited or anything like that. So demonstrated interest at a place like Miami is going to be used in their School of Nursing. So there's parts of this process that your students have control about or control of, and there's other parts that they don't. So let's talk about right now what they have control over. They have control over the classes that they take. They have control, for the most part, of their grades. They have control. Have they started to volunteer? Have they volunteered at one place over a long period of time? Have they gotten active in club sports outside of school type of organizations? Have they joined any clubs at the school? Have they played any sports at the school? Do they have any leadership roles? And have they visited campus that demonstrated interest towards that school? They have control over all of that. And the parts that they do not have control over, and some of you might not like this list, that it is part of the process. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. It is the process. So every college has their own institutional needs. Geographics are very important. A place like Ohio State, they're going to admit students from all 88 counties in Ohio. They're going to admit students from all 50 states. And they're going to admit students from a minimum of 35 countries. Some of you might think that's great. Some of you might not like that at all. It doesn't matter. This is the game that's played. Over the last 2 or 3 years, 67% of the admits to a place like Ohio State have come from in-state. Okay. Some colleges give a little advantage to legacy. If a parent had graduated from said school, that their child might get extra points, I guess. Some people think that's great. Some people do not. It just was voted on last week in the state of California. The private schools in the state of California are no longer allowed to use legacy as a part of the admissions process. Socioeconomics. Like this or not, especially on the private school side, they will require financial aid forms to be in before they can make a decision if students are going to be admitted or not. Sometimes being able to pay helps, because if they admit students who don't pay any, they have to admit pretty much the same number of students who can pay full price. And so for most of us that are right there in the middle, this is where that financial aid package comes in. But on their side, it's also a budget. They have a budget. It is a business. They have to be able to bring in enough funds to be able to pay for all of their expenses. You might not like that, but especially on the private school side, they will need to have all of that information. Special talents. Many colleges are looking for people that can play musical instruments. Can they sing? Can they dance? Can they play a sport? You might like that. You might not like that. But it is part of the process. That is an institutional need by that school. And then there's also some states that have their own legislative piece built in, like Texas and North Carolina. North Carolina, if you want to apply to UNC Chapel Hill, They have a state law there that 83% of their admits must come from the state of North Carolina. In the state of Texas, their state law is 80% of the admits must come from the state of Texas. In Florida, all state schools must require standardized tests. In the state of California, all of the state schools there are not allowed to use standardized testing. So every state may have their own rules built into it as well. So what should students be doing between now and April? They should be meeting with the college reps that come to each of the high schools. They should be going on colleges' websites and doing virtual tours. They should be going to college fairs, gathering all kinds of information. Then they should be scheduling visits to go to campus and meet with them face to face and take a tour of campus. They should be creating a testing plan and then begin to work that testing plan, and then begin to think about and research what it is that they may want to study. So if you'd like to contact me, feel free to send me an email at tom_woodford@hboe. If you want to follow me on X, it's at Woodford_Tom. And continue to watch my weekly college news emails. I will send them out every week with upcoming events and dates and things like that. Again, if you want to schedule a time to meet, please send me an email and let's sit down as a family and let's talk about future plans. I hope that you have a great day and we will talk soon. Thank you.